Hello everybody, this is International Master Otanu and you are watching How Chess Masters Think. Today we are going to watch a chess game between Alexander Alekhine, who was the 4th World Chess Champion, who died even when he was World Chess Champion, and he was playing this match in his last days of his life against Pomar, a master from France, and this game was played in the a master from Spain, and this game was played in the Spanish capital of Madrid. So this is the position. Here it is black to play. Alexander Alekhine was black, Pomar was white, and as we can see, if we compare this position with the previous lessons or videos which I have shared, the difference is there is no clear-cut zone of action or weakness in either camp. Here, the king, black's king, as well as white king, both of them have a potential to be attacked. So for instance, if you say white would like the zone of action to be an area near the black king, well, this area of the board, and for black the potential area for attack would be here, aiming at the king, and it's very easy for either side to actually get the pieces near the opponent's zone of action. So for instance, the queen can attack this point, the knight is attacking here, the bishop already controls squares, and so on. For black, it's very easy to open the line because there's already a hook, a pawn on h3, which can be challenged by pawn g5 and g4, opening the g line. The rooks can come into action very fast via g line, and of course the bishop can reroute, can be placed favorably. So this is where black would like to attack, but as yet nobody has started his attack. It was black to play, and black played the first move, that is b6, trying to remove the knight on c5. And this is the most critical position of this game. White did not white can, if you wish, continue the attack by taking risk, or he can simply retreat and opt for a peaceful continuation. But in the main position in the game, he planned to play knight b3, retreating. Instead, white could have played something very interesting, that is b4. And this is the reason why this example was chosen. Very often we have an option of retreating or investing something to continue our plan of action. And here, as we see, the plan of action was the queen side that was vulnerable. Okay, so this is where white would have wished the zone of action to be. So b4 is a move which opens the b line for the rook, and if black captures the knight, white would take back the pawn, attack the queen would escape to squares like c6, white would continue something like rook b1, and you can already see the pieces are ready to pounce on the queen side to attack the king. If black tries to escape, white would of course pin the queen and win the queen with the support of the rook. So this was an idea, a very interesting idea, sacrificing a piece. Of course, white is one knight behind, one knight less. So if he cannot attack properly, he even risks losing. But at least the game or the zone of action would be focused on the queen side, where it's easier for white to bring his pieces. Instead, as we saw in the main game, he opted to retreat his knight. And this was very costly because now black chooses the zone of action on the king side. Now black gets ready to attack by bringing his rook and breaking open the g file, prying open the g file, attacking the king, and so on. And of course, if the g line is attacked, it will be one-sided game. The zone of action will be simply one-sided. White would have to bring his pieces to defense. So look at this position and look at the next few moves. Black played knight h2, stopping g4 or discouraging g4. Perhaps he would even play f3, trying to shore up this square and discourage black from breaking. But at least with this move, he has retreated both the knights. And now black continues his attack. He wants to bring in fresh pieces to attack d3 and g2. And since the position would be really quite bad in a few more moves, white opts to change the course of the game. He accepts slightly inferior position. He breaks the queen side. And now, of course, he is aiming to attack by playing c5. He knows that black would play d4, bishop c4, and now the entire game is focused mainly on the square d5 and the weak pawn, the isolated pawn, that is d4. So the zone of action has suddenly changed. The main weakness in the position has suddenly shifted from the white king to the white weak pawn. And now the next few moves, although not very important from our thematic point of view, but it's worth seeing how Alexander Alekhine improves his position, exchanges pieces, and finally wins an endgame from this position. Just look at this. Black improved his king position and he played knight d8, well, planning to plant the bishop here and exchange the bishop for the white bishop. He exchanges, and we just have to know that whenever an opponent has a weakness, a clear-cut weakness, it's better to simplify and simply concentrate and focus on the weakness. So here the weakness is d4 pawn. Black centralized his piece. He exchanged the pieces, pushed away the queen, and finally he wants to bring his knight to f5 from where he can keep on pressurizing d4. And look, the d4 pawn has only one advantage, that is it gives outpost on these two squares, but both squares are controlled by black's pawns. And he plays knight f4, finally exchanges the queen. We go through the moves pretty quickly because, well, the theme is important, not the moves at this point. There could have been many good moves. Black's knights are placed ideally, attacking the d-pawn as well as stopping the d-pawn. Black's rook is also placed ideally, pressurizing the d-pawn. And most importantly, in the end game, black's king is placed ideally. It can come in the center very fast compared to white king, which is quite far away. So we know that in the end games, kings play a very important role in attack because they are not afraid there are less chance of getting checkmated. So in this particular game, black played king c7, white went back, black attacked. Look at the knight. The knight had all the options of jumping here, here, or even here deep into white's territory, attacking the pawns. So he prefers to attack from b4, this pawn. White counterattacks f6, black defends, and white doesn't allow exchange. And in this position, finally, white gets back the pawn. But as we see, both sides have two knights. Black has an extra king in action. White doesn't have the king in action. So in effect, there are three pieces which are active for black compared to 2 by white. And also the imbalance, the uneven distribution of the pawn simply means that these two pawns against this pawn would allow black to create a passed pawn on the queen side. So let us see. Black attacks b pawn and he keeps on attacking the b pawn with the knight. Finally, instead of losing the b pawn and allowing the a pawn to move forward, white plays d5 and black attacks the knight first. The knight attacks this pawn. Black takes the pawn, and now white, before capturing the g pawn, he puts the pawn to b5 so that not only the pawn is moved away from attack, but it restricts these two pawns. And now finally, black plays something very instructive. He gives away this pawn, attacks the knight, and then takes both the pawns with his knight. Check. He captures the f2 pawn with check. Once the king moves, he takes the second pawn as well. So black, the world champion, is 2 pawns up, and in very near future, black would either get this pawn by this way or with the help of king. He also has 1 pass pawn, and after capturing the b pawn, he will have 3 pass pawns. White gave up the game over here. So it was, we went through the game quite fast because the end game or the middle game, also very interesting, were not exactly what I wanted to emphasize in this video. The most important lesson in this video, we can go through the moves once again, the initial moves, and that is here after b6, white should have carried on his plan of attacking the king and even invested material by playing b4 instead of retreating and allowing black to dictate terms on the king side. After he played here, we see white had to retreat, and now he had to concede a weakness on d4 so that black doesn't improve any further and squeeze white. So it was a short game, a short video, but with a very important lesson. As chess players, we do face this kind of problems very often. When to continue the attack and continue with the risk, and when to retreat and opt for peace of mind. So as in life, in chess, there is no one answer to this question. It all depends from situation to situation. In this particular case, we saw it was worth investing material rather than retreating. So that's all for today. We shall continue with your video and we shall try to relate the incidents on chessboard with lessons in life. Keep watching. Thank you. Thanks for watching.